good morning, everybody. And I was actually going to ask a very similar question to what Steve asked about which mums woke up this morning peacefully, relaxed, had breakfast in bed brought to them, the children were well mannered, there was no squabbles before church, everyone got ready on time, and you just breezed to church feeling wonderfully relaxed. Did that happen to anybody? To our older mums. Well, you know, if you live in Walt Disneyland, that's what you'd expect to happen, wouldn't you? You'd have Prince Charming coming in with the beautiful white, tray with the beautiful flowers. But sadly, that's not happening a lot in our current climate. And mums are under a lot of pressure. And I see that, weekly when I'm counselling. And I had a young mum just this week, actually, who came in and she read a journal just of a day she'd had to me. And my heart almost broke. Because this is a first-time mum and she's actually doing a fantastic job. But she is struggling. And you'll see up there, I've got the words, more than enough, you are more than enough. And I just wanted to keep saying to her, you are doing a great job. You're doing really well. She's not a Christian at this stage, but, we'll keep praying and keep believing because I can't do it without God. I don't know about you other mums, but I need him. And I've actually realised more and more again this week, I actually need more than just I need my God, I need good men in my life. And this morning I just want to honour my husband and my son and Nathan and Steve as well, even though we don't know each other very well yet. But these are strong men. I feel a bit like David. I feel like I have a team of mighty men around me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute because I want to bring it together with the story. So when I was thinking about this, I sort of went off in a couple of different directions. And then last night I was talking to Nathan briefly, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, where are we actually going with this? And so I feel like he's given me a word for the church today for mums and dads, and not just for mums who have biological children, but I believe this is for those of you who are wanting to see things birthed in the spiritual realm, not just the natural realm. For those of you who have those dreams and desires, those ideas that God's placed within you in your spiritual womb that's sitting there, they're growing, they're bubbling away, and you're not quite sure what it might look like yet. But this is part of this story as well. And that's why we need other strong people around us who can help bring those things to pass, help birth those things. So for me, I have to share a little bit about my story because it's such an integral part of why I am where I am today and how I deal with things. So some of you have heard this, probably most of you, but I was raised in domestic violence. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. So by the time I came along, my dad was about 30. By that stage, he'd been drinking. He drank every day from 6 o'clock when he opened up his shop to whatever time he closed the shop. So by the time he closed the shop, he was pretty tanked. Then he would go to one of the local pubs. And I remember many times just driving around in the car with my mum, because we only had one car back then, looking for him. And that in itself could be an adventure, because when we found him, he could do one or two things. He could drive home quietly, or she would drive us home, or he would attempt to strangle her while she was driving and we're in the car. Or at times he would have us younger ones, after the shop had closed, he would put us in the back of the car, drive the station wagon to the pub, leave us sleeping in the back of the car while he's in the pub, then he would drive us home. So I really believe God's angels were certainly on patrol watching over us because we could have had any number of accidents at that point and all been killed. However, we were spared. So by the time I was 12, things had continued to escalate, and it was like living in a Hollywood movie. You know, every other night the police were at our house, the ambulance was at our house, our mum was in hospital. I would get shuffed off somewhere or run across to my neighbours for safety, or my sisters would hide me in the cupboard so Dad couldn't get me. Or I learnt to lie very still in my bed because I thought if I laid still enough, if I held my breath, he might not come over and he might leave me sleep. that's what it was like for me growing up. So when I see those beautiful film clips of the love between a parent and a child, or a mother and a child, where it says they were there for you, they helped pick you up, they listened to you, they cared for you. Sadly, that was not my reality. So much so, actually, I was getting picked on by one of the school teachers when I was in year 3 because I wasn't getting my homework done, believe it or not. How that would happen in my situation. Most times, midnight could be any time we were going to bed. So he would get on my case about not getting my homework done, and he thought it was novel to stand me up on the desks and make fun of me in front of all the other kids. He would mock me. So I started to refuse to go to school. So, who wouldn't? So I started sitting outside our house near the letterbox, and I just sat there. And I refused. So because of my mum's health issues and mental health issues, we had a cleaner who would come and help. Her name was Endy. And so she kept seeing me sitting at the letterbox because I refused to go. I got sick of being intimidated by this teacher. And then one day she said to me, "What's going on, Chris?" And I finally told her. Now, I don't know what she said to that teacher. However, she came with me, not my mum. And I'm not even sure to this day if my mum even knew about that event. But she was the one who came with me. She spoke to the teacher. And of course, he probably felt very guilty about what he was doing and changed. So that's just a little bit about my life. By the time I was 12, we did actually finally leave. People in domestic violence often come and go, and that's what Mum did. And there was no such thing as safe houses or financial support in those days. So I kind of get why it was difficult for her to go. Anyway, we did leave. We moved about 3 times, and each time he found us, through various circumstances, and then we'd move again. But eventually my dad, through a number of situations, drink driving charges, assaulting police charges, and ultimately burning down the home, arson charges, he ended up in prison for a period of time. So that's where we lost contact, and once he was out of prison, the court order said that he could not we were in Toowoomba at the time, so he could not move back to Toowoomba. He had to live somewhere else, which he did. So we gradually began to rebuild connection, and I hadn't started doing that long before I met my husband. So you can imagine I grew up a pretty confused, neglected, abandoned young woman. I was a bit, maybe I'll use this as my analogy. This is my prop today. It was a bit like this. Whatever was in that vase when I was born, all the pretty, beautiful things, whatever was in there, every time something happened, it just was like that. And I'd like to stomp on that, because actually that's what it was like. The time I meet my husband and give my heart to the Lord, this was empty. No colour, lots of hate, lots of anger, nothing. You can't really bring much to bear when there's nothing like that. So this is where I'm saying it's so important to have good people around you. So I may not have been parented how God intended by my natural parents, but bit by bit, he brought good people into my life who began to help me pick up the pieces. Obviously, my relationship with God was paramount. And when I became a Christian, I felt a peace like you couldn't imagine. Andrew's shaking his head. And I remember when I became a Christian, I was on a youth camp, and everyone cried. Girls on the youth camps where everyone cries. And I never cried because crying was weak, and you don't cry. You don't show emotions, because in domestic violence you learn not to trust, not to feel, and not to care. So I'm on this camp, and God's doing his thing on me, and I'm trying to pull away, and in the end I couldn't. I just said, give up. So the prayer was a bit like this: all right, God, okay, I need help. Can you help me? That was about the substance of my prayer that night. Anyway, I had the best sleep in the world. And I got up in the morning and I thought, I'm not telling anyone because what if it doesn't work? So in plops my first beautiful flower. My relationship with God starts. But don't tell anyone, Chris, because if it doesn't work, and what will these people do with it anyway? Can I trust them? So I'm like, okay, I won't tell anyone. Oh, well, that didn't work either. Because I went up for breakfast. Someone said, oh, you okay? I went, yep. What happened? What's happened? I said, nothing's happened. Yeah, something's happened, Chris. We can see. I said, no, nothing's happened. So over a period of that morning, all these people kept coming, and I'm sure they were going, go on, ask Chris, what happened? And they're going, what's happened? I'm going, nothing's happened. I had a sleep, I'm here. Can you just drop it like this? And eventually, we can see something's happened. So obviously my countenance had changed. You know, when you walk around, when you walk around an angry, bitter, sad person, you can see it. Is that right? Have you walked past people in the street and you think, oh my goodness, they look like they're having a hard day? You know, you can see it. So clearly, God had already begun to do something, and I was changing. So bit by bit, I had to go back to Toowoomba, so that was another journey. But I'd met my husband by then, so God knew who I needed. And he knew I needed a man who could support me. He knew I needed someone who couldn't just help me with my natural children, but someone who could co-labour with me and actually support me on my spiritual journey. Now, sometimes he didn't always understand that, but it didn't stop him from supporting me. And bit by bit, he took a broken heart and he began to help heal it along with God. So, as our relationship grew, the things that Andrew would do would fill me up, would help me grow. He helped my confidence. He helped my courage. But probably one of the things he helped most was my trust. It's very easy to say, oh yeah, I trust you. I trust you, God. God called me on it one day. He said, do you? And I really had to think about it. Because I trusted a little bit. It's like, here's a bit of my heart, God. I'll trust you with this much. But, bit by bit. And I am still learning that trust. You don't come through difficult childhood experiences. God heals, but the journey continues. The trust, you learn to deepen your trust. And I talked to Nathan just before the service because, we work together in the office. And Nathan, we were talking about something in the office the other day. And Nathan shared just a couple of sentences with me. And he said, can I say the sentence here? So Nathan was talking to one of the other councillors about the government for our service. We've got to meet certain number of counselling hours. So it creates a little bit of stress. And the centre over there is like my baby. So, I hold on to it pretty tightly sometimes, and it's like, don't touch it. Don't let it go. So sometimes, Nathan and I have talked, and it's like, yes, Nathan, I know. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Because I want to carry this all by myself. And during the week, as I was thinking about the importance of men in our life as women and mothers, it's like God taps me on the head. Nathan says these couple of sentences. So he was talking to the other counsellor saying about the hours, and he said, and he's telling me this. So he said, Chris, that's my responsibility. But you've got to let me take it. It was something like that. Or you said to me, but you won't let me have it. No. So it's a little bit like this. Say this is my vase. Honey, you got the water there? Here it is, I'm walking around. I'm trying to build trust. With my husband and with Nathan. But my flowers need some water. So what do? All right, just a bit then. Just a bit. Okay, whoop, just a bit, all right. That's enough. Yeah, okay. So that illustration is to say, so come back, honey. So give it, sorry. That's it. That's it right there. Yeah, come back, honey. So Andrew's trying to help me. Nathan's trying to help me. Steve tries to help me. But girls and mums, if you're wanting help with the children and your men are wanting to step up and help, don't do this. Because we tend to. Because as mums, we get very protective of our babies, don't we? And we think we know best. But God puts you with someone. What was that? Yeah, what'd you say? Yeah, we do. And so what do? We go, and it's a bit like me with Andrew or with Nathan. Sorry, you can sit down now, Donald. Yeah. A bit like I'm going, oh God, this is so hard. And I just wish you'd help me with the kids, or I just wish you'd do this, and what are we going to do? Meanwhile, my husband, and like Nathan, they're wanting to help. But I have to choose to trust. I have to choose to go, okay. Because I want, hang on. I want more flowers in my garden. I want my pot to be full. I want what God wants me to look like. Now, I might look different to how someone else looks, and that's okay. Because we mums can play the comparison game really well. But I don't look like that, or I don't do it like that, or she parents much better than me. Look at how well her kids are behaved. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. Just some people are very good at parenting, okay? Either that or God's just blessed them with compliant children. Which sadly we were not blessed with. Oh, did I say that? I didn't mean that. Sorry, I don't really mean that. Sorry. But you know what? I was looking at the illustration in scriptures about how there's Paul and Timothy, and Paul's talking to Timothy and he says, I see the same faith in you as I see in your mother and your grandmother. And that's the kind of mum I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who, when people looked at their children, could see what we carry as a family. And I've been very fortunate. You got your flowers here, Josh? Come on up. So I've been very fortunate that Josh now does what his dad does. And Josh now blesses me. Thank you, darling. Thank you. You can sit down. So when I'm preparing last night, and I'm sort of sitting there thinking, what's going on? And I'm doing my notes. Josh is there. Comes over. How you doing, Mum? Are you okay? Gives me a little shoulder rub. You'll be good, Mum. And I thought, how precious that I can receive from my son, because I couldn't always do that. There was a time when the kids were little where I thought I had to be all things to all people, all the time, anywhere, anytime, any place. And I couldn't cry, remember? Even as a mum, couldn't cry. Didn't want to show weakness to my kids because I want them to be emotionally healthy, because I sure wasn't. But there was a time when I had no choice, really. God was working on me. And I was in a period of time when God was helping me to reconcile the past with the present. There was a big gap, and I didn't want to go there. But God brought me to a place in time where I had to slow down and stop. I had to rest. And in that period of time, I had to learn to hand over responsibility of my parenting to my husband. And I had to learn to receive from both of them, to be comforted by my family. And what I want to say to you dads, I know this is about mums and we're having a bit of a joke about mums letting your dad step up. But what you've got to understand is my mother couldn't parent because of the acts of my father. So what I want to ask you, and I know you're not doing what my dad did. However, in subtle ways, are you undermining your wife's ability to parent to the best of her ability? And it can be very subtle. And I know that many of you wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to think, sorry, what I mean by that is that you're not meaning to undermine your wife's parenting, but it happens so subtly. Sometimes it's just a little critical word, or, sometimes it's just not bringing home those flowers, or, God might be speaking to you about encouraging your wife, but you forget about it. We women thrive on affirmation. And all I can say to you guys is encourage you that when you affirm your woman, she becomes like this. She thrives. And she can handle the tough stuff of the day. Otherwise, it's a bit like this, guys. Mum wakes up, the morning starts off badly. I'm a bad mum. The guilt kicks in, the frustration kicks in. Why can't I be like someone else? Why can't I do a better job? Why do I get so upset and angry? By the time you get home in the afternoon, that's what you see. But when we girls get a note of thank you or a bunch of flowers, see, it's not just about the flower, it's actually about what does the flower communicate to her, to your wife, and to her ability to parent well. When you do that, we bloom. You help us. Very quiet in here. Yeah. So when we talk about parenting, what I want you to think about today, not just how you parent in the natural realm, but I want you to think about who are you parenting or mentoring. We've been very fortunate that we've had a whole stack of young people through our house, not just our boys, but I've lost count, could be 18 maybe, is it? Probably 18 young people that have stayed with us for a period of time. Some for a long time, some for a short time. But they're like my kids. And when they're in my home, I look after them like I'm their parent. And we parented our nieces for a period of time because their mums couldn't. And just as I stepped up, in many ways Andrew also stepped up. And he took on the fathering role for a lot of these young people. So remember, church, or mums today, it's not just about your biological children. It's about who else is out there that God is wanting you to influence. When Naomi influenced Ruth, Ruth would not leave her side. Ruth said, "Don't send me away to my people. Your people are my people." Because of Naomi's influence, she could cross the cultural divide with Ruth. And there was obviously a pretty significantly strong relationship there for Ruth to want to stay with Naomi. That's the influence we can have, not just on our own kids, but on other people around, other women around us. Yeah. So, in finishing up, I want to encourage you, you are more than enough. You don't need to battle with perfectionism and guilt. God has placed you here for the right time, for the right season. And whatever it is He's got within you, whether it's a physical baby or whether there's something you believe God's wanting you to do, then be like Hannah. Persevere, press in, cry out to God, lean into God, and trust that God will bring it to pass. So I hope you all have a wonderful Mother's Day. And if anyone does need prayer, there'll be prayer offered afterwards. But I just want to bless you, mums. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.